He handed me a coat I did not ask for and said, "Your daughter needs a home. Mine wants a mother." I stood barefoot on the porch of that dry goods store, arms wrapped around my little girl, teeth chattering from more than just the cold. We had been on the road near 6 weeks. No money, no shelter, just loss behind us and fear ahead. The townspeople stared like we were ghosts, or worse, trouble. But he looked at me like I was still human. He wore a sheriff's badge, though his voice carried no force. Just calm, like a quiet river that could still drown you if you did not respect it. His name was Sheriff Coulter Hayes. I had never seen him before that morning, and yet he walked right up to me, offered that coat, and spoke those words like a man who meant them. "My daughter is 7, he said. "She has not smiled since her mother passed. I think she is waiting for someone like you." I did not answer. What could I say? My daughter, Lucy, was 5, thin as fence wire, her cheeks wind-burnt, her hands trembling in mine. I had buried my husband in Missouri. He left us with nothing but debt and cold graves. We came west by foot, hiding from men who said I owed them, slept in barns, took bread when it was left out. We were shadows in towns like this, until that morning. "I do not need a wife," Coulter said. "I need someone kind." I should have walked away. I should have doubted him. But the way Lucy looked at him, like he was safe, like he was shelter, I could not ignore that. "Why me?" I asked him. "You do not even know me." He bent down to Lucy's level, brushed a curl from her face, and said, "I know what it looks like when a child has no one left, and I know what it feels like to want to fix that." That was the first time I felt warmth in weeks, and it did not come from the coat. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. We followed him home because we had nowhere else to go. Coulter walked ahead of us, leading his horse through the narrow trail that wound out past the edge of town. I held Lucy close in my shawl, watching his boots crunch frozen dirt. The sky had that heavy gray look like it was deciding whether to snow or not. I knew that look. I had lived under skies like that for years. His cabin sat up a small rise, hidden by pine and scrub oak. Not grand, but neat. Built by hands that cared for every board. Smoke puffed soft from the chimney and I smelled wood ash and something like stew. Inside, it was warm. Too warm. My body did not trust it. I stood there by the door, afraid to sit, afraid to breathe too deep and make it disappear. "You can rest here," he said. "There's hot food on the stove, water in the basin." I laid a quilt out for Lucy by the fire. Lucy let go of my hand without asking. She walked right over to that quilt and curled up like she belonged there. My heart broke at how fast she trusted. Coulter stood in the corner, quiet, letting us settle. He did not ask questions. He did not touch me. He did not look at me the way most men do when they think kindness earns something back. "Your daughter," I asked. "Where is she?" He walked to a room at the back and opened the door slow. A little girl sat on the edge of a bed, brushing a doll's hair. She had long braids, brown eyes like her father. When she saw me, she tilted her head but said nothing. "That's June," he said. "She's shy with most folks." June looked past me to Lucy, then walked out of the room without fear, sat by her on the quilt, and handed over the doll. Just like that, they were 2 little girls, already beginning what mothers never can control, the bond between lost children. I watched it happen like it was holy, and I wondered if maybe God was still writing stories like mine. Coulter stirred the stew and said, "I do not expect you to stay, but you can, for the winter, until you figure where you are going next." He meant it, every word. But I already knew something dangerous. I did not want to leave. I woke up the next morning and cried because I did not feel afraid. It had been so long since I slept through the night without waking from dreams of boots on floorboards, of men shouting, of Lucy being taken from me by rough hands. But in Coulter's cabin, there was only the sound of wind outside and the soft breathing of two sleeping girls. I had taken the far cot near the stove. He had given it to me without hesitation, said he would sleep in the barn with the dog. And he did. I saw him through the frost-tinted window, rising early, feeding the horses, chopping wood like the cold did not bite. He lived alone for 3 years, he later told me, since his wife died of sickness that came swift and mean one spring. He had buried her under the big cedar out back. June left flowers there every Sunday, without fail. I asked him why he had not remarried. A man like him, strong, respected, steady, he could have had his pick. He shrugged, wiping his hands on a cloth. I did not want a woman who liked the idea of me. I wanted one who knew pain, who could survive it. I thought about that long. He was not asking me for love, not yet. He was asking for something deeper, a quiet alliance between two broken hearts who still had children to raise. By the end of that first week, Lucy and June were more sisters than strangers. They shared chores, brushed each other's hair, whispered secrets under quilts. And me, I found peace in tending the fire, sewing patches, boiling potatoes. I remembered how to hum again. And Coulter. He kept his distance, but not coldly. He brought back dried meat, new boots for Lucy, even a ribbon for her hair. He laid them by the door, never made it feel like a trade. One night, while the girls slept and I was peeling apples, he sat across from me and said something I will never forget. "My girl is laughing again," he said. "That is because of you." I had no words, just a lump in my throat the size of Missouri. That was the first time I let myself imagine a life here, one not built on running but on staying, a life where maybe, just maybe, I could matter again. The first letter came on the 10th day, and it nearly stopped my heart. Coulter found it tucked in the feed sack by the barn, no envelope, just my name scratched in angry ink across torn paper. I read the words alone, behind the cabin, where the girls could not see my hands shaking. "You think you can disappear? You owe me, girl. I always collect." There was no signature. There did not need to be one. My late husband's brother, Wallace, had always seen me as part of his brother's property. When my husband died, Wallace came with papers and debts and hands that lingered too long on my shoulder. He said I would pay what my husband owed, with money or with obedience. But I ran instead, with Lucy in my arms and nothing but fear in my pockets. I showed Coulter the letter that night. He read it once, slow, then folded it without a word. His jaw worked tight, his knuckles pale where he gripped the arm of the chair. "He found you," he finally said, "but he will not find her." I looked at him, confused. "Who?" He pointed to the room where Lucy slept beside June. "Your daughter. He may be after you, but he will never touch her." That was when I knew Coulter Hayes was not just a kind man. He was a man who stood between evil and the innocent, without noise, without question. He nailed the windows shut that night, reinforced the back door, saddled his horse by morning and rode into town to speak with the marshal, who owed him more than a few favors. When he returned, he handed me a tin star. "Not for you," he said, "for the front gate. Let them know this place is watched." I asked him why he was doing all this, why he cared. His voice was gravel when he answered, "Because the law does not always come fast, and justice should not come late." We did not touch, we did not speak of love. But something settled in the air between us, like a rope pulled tight between two posts, sturdy, silent, strong. Lucy never knew about the letter. She just kept playing with June, planting tulip bulbs near the porch like spring was promised. And maybe, in a place like this, it was. It snowed hard that night, and I lay awake listening for footsteps that never came. The cabin creaked under the weight of winter. Wind howled through the pines like a voice calling out from another life. I wrapped myself tighter in the quilt Coulter's late wife had sewn, her stitches still holding after all those years. I wondered what she was like, what kind of love she left behind, whether Coulter's heart was still full of her, whether there would ever be room for someone like me, a widow with debts, with shadows, with blood that had not yet dried from old wounds. At dawn, I stepped outside with a cup of coffee, boots crunching snow, and saw Coulter splitting logs without gloves. His breath rose in clouds. His shirt clung to his back from the work. I watched in silence, wondering how a man could be so steady when the world kept trying to tip. He looked up, noticed me watching. For the first time, he smiled. "You ever cut wood?" he asked. I shook my head. "I stitched coats. I poured tea. I raised a child. I survived. But I never split wood." He handed me the axe. It was heavier than I expected, awkward in my grip, but he showed me, hand over hand, close to mine, yet never touching more than he had to. I brought the blade down once, twice, and by the third strike the log cracked open like a promise kept. "You do it like someone who has been holding back," he said. I wanted to cry at that, because he was right. All my life I had been quiet, polite, obedient, until the world broke me hard enough that silence became survival. But out here, with this man, I was beginning to remember who I was before fear taught me manners. That night, after the girls went to sleep, I found Coulter on the porch, watching the trees. I stood beside him for a long while before I asked, "What are you really offering me, Coulter Hayes?" He did not turn, just said, "A name that protects, a roof that holds, a place where your child can grow up safe." I waited. He added nothing more. So I asked the question I feared most, "And what do you want in return?" He finally turned to me then, eyes steady as the land itself. "Nothing I would not give first. Nothing you do not choose for yourself." And that was the first time I believed. Maybe I was not just safe. Maybe I was wanted. Have you ever trusted the wrong person? The second letter was not meant for me. I found it tucked inside June's doll cradle, folded twice, written in the same hand as the first. Only this time, it did not speak to me. It spoke to her. Does she look like him, little girl? Does she talk like him too? My breath caught in my chest. My knees near gave out. I read it again and again, trying to understand what it meant. Wallace's threats I expected, his cruelty, his pursuit, his madness. I had lived with those shadows before. But this felt different. This was personal. I showed Coulter. His face went blank in that dangerous way. The way a man looks when his fury is buried so deep, it turns cold instead of loud. "This is not about money anymore," I whispered. "He thinks Lucy. He thinks—" Coulter held up his hand. "I know what he thinks." The silence stretched, and in it, the unspoken truth filled the room like smoke. Wallace had always wanted Lucy, not to love her, not to raise her, but to claim her, like property, like proof that his brother had wronged him. And now he was circling back, using June's innocence to twist the knife. And then Coulter told me something I never expected to hear. He came through here once, 2 winters ago, asking about a woman with a red-haired child, asking about a man she married. He asked questions I did not answer. My blood ran cold. "You knew?" He nodded. "I did not know it was you, but I knew it was trouble." He looked away, then said, "My wife was still alive then. She said sometimes, when a man's eyes shine like oil, you best not light a fire near him." That was Wallace, a man slick with charm and slicker with danger. And suddenly everything inside me turned to fire. Because this was no longer about running. It was about standing. Coulter went into the barn and brought out a box he had not opened since his own war. Inside were bullets, papers, old letters from his father. He laid them on the table one by one. "Do you know how to shoot?" he asked. I nodded. "Enough to protect what is mine." He looked me in the eye and said, "Then it is time you stop surviving and start fighting." That night I did not sleep. I sat beside the bed where Lucy and June lay curled like kittens, and I watched the door, waiting, because now I knew Wallace was not coming for me. He was coming for her. I dug the grave before he arrived, not because I planned to use it, but because I needed him to see it, needed him to understand that I was not running anymore, that this land, this cabin, these children were defended now by more than fear. They were defended by a woman with nothing left to lose. Coulter helped me. He dug most of it, truth be told. Silent, steady, with his jaw clenched like he was chewing the memory of every law he ever followed. When he finished, he placed a wooden plank at the head of the pit, carved no name, just the date. We left it there like a warning. That night I cleaned my old revolver, the one I carried in the folds of my skirt all the way from Missouri. 6 bullets, rust around the chamber, but she still clicked solid. Lucy asked me what I was doing. I told her the truth. "I am making sure nobody ever hurts you again." She nodded, solemn, like a child who had learned too early how deep pain runs. Coulter posted 2 of his ranch hands out near the ridge. They owed him for debts I did not ask about. All I knew was they rode in quiet and stayed out of sight, like wolves waiting in snow. For 3 days we waited, and then, just before dawn on the 4th, we heard the sound of hooves. Slow, deliberate, a single rider. I stepped out onto the porch, rifle in my hand, apron still dusted with flour from breakfast I never finished. My heart beat so loud I thought Lucy might hear it from inside. Wallace rode up like he owned the land. He dismounted without a word, looked me over like I was still the girl he remembered, the one he could corner, control, break. But I did not bow my head this time. "You came a long way," I said, "for nothing." He smiled, but there was no humor in it, just hunger. "I came for my niece. You know she's not yours by blood." I raised the rifle halfway. "She is mine by love, and that is stronger." He looked past me toward the cabin. I saw it then, the flicker in his eyes. He was not here to plead. He was here to take. "She deserves to know her family," he said. "She has one," I said back, "and she is sleeping safe in a home you will never enter." He took 1 step forward. That was all. A shot cracked the silence from the trees above, missed his boot by inches. Coulter's voice followed it. "Next one goes through your leg." Wallace froze, rage in his eyes. But for the first time, I saw something else too. Fear. The kind a bully tastes when the tables turn. Wallace was not used to being the one watched. He stood in that snow-covered yard, eyes darting toward the tree line where Coulter's rifle still smoked. He did not know how many men waited in the woods. He did not know if I would pull the trigger myself. What he did know was that his time playing God had ended. Still, he smirked. That same smile I remembered from the back room of our old house, where he'd whisper threats like prayers and hold debt papers over my head like scripture. "You always were a mouthy girl," he said. "And you always were a coward," I answered. He laughed. "You think these people will protect you? You think that man," he pointed toward the forest, "will stick around when he finds out what you really are?" I said nothing, because that was the part I feared most. Not Wallace, not even death. It was the truth I had not told Coulter, the truth I carried like a brand on my soul. Lucy was not my husband's child. She was Wallace's. That night so many years ago, when I was trapped, when my husband was gone for days, when Wallace came drunk and cruel, I bled afterward, in every way a woman can. And when Lucy came months later, I lied to the world, but I never lied to her. She was born of pain, raised in love, and protected now by a mother who would rather die than let her fall into the hands of the man who had taken everything. Coulter still did not know, but Wallace did, and now he held that truth like a dagger. "I will go," he said, "but only if you send the girl to me before sundown tomorrow." My voice shook, but I forced it out. "You will die on this land if you stay past morning." He stared at me, hard, then climbed back on his horse. "You should tell him," he said, nodding toward the woods, "before someone else does." He turned and rode off. I stood there long after he disappeared, my hands still frozen around the rifle, not from the cold, but from the weight of what I carried. That night, I found Coulter sitting by the fire, whittling wood into the shape of a small rocking horse. He looked up. "You did good today." I knelt beside him. "I need to tell you something." His hand stilled. "My daughter, she is not just my burden. She is my shame and my miracle." I told him everything. The night, the pain, the truth. And when I finished, I waited for the judgment. It never came. He simply said, "Then she is more yours than ever, because you chose her, and she chose you." The next morning, Coulter placed a ring on the table, not in a box, not with ceremony, just a small silver band, worn from time and work, like the man himself. He said, "I gave this to a woman once. She wore it until her last breath. I never thought I would pass it on, but I would rather see it on your hand than see you leave." I stared at it, blinking back tears. "I am not whole," I whispered. "I am not clean." Coulter stood, walked around the table, and took my hand gently in his. "Neither am I. That is why we fit." Lucy came in then, hair wild with sleep, dragging June by the wrist. They both stopped when they saw us. I held up the ring, and Lucy's face bloomed with something I had not seen in her since her father died. Hope. We married that night. No preacher, no guests, just the wind, the fire, and the two girls sitting on either side of us, watching like they knew the world was changing. Coulter said vows I will never forget. "I will not promise to erase your past. I will not pretend it never happened. I will only promise to stand with you in every shadow it leaves behind." I had no words as strong, so I simply said, "I choose you." It was enough, but peace did not last. At dawn we found the front gate broken, not from weather, not from animal, boot tracks, deep, heavy, leading straight to the barn. Coulter grabbed his rifle, jaw tight. I followed, heart pounding. The horses were still there, so were the tools, but the hay had been turned over, and carved into one of the stall posts was a single word: soon. Wallace was circling, testing the edges, playing his game of fear. Coulter turned to me. "He will come tonight." I nodded. "Then we will be ready." We fortified the cabin, barred the doors, covered the windows, sent the girls to sleep in the root cellar with quilts and apples and lanterns. I kissed Lucy's forehead and told her, "Whatever you hear, stay quiet, stay low." She nodded, brave, so brave. Then Coulter and I sat by the fire, guns close, hearts closer, and we waited for the final reckoning, because some men believe they are owed the world, and some women are born to teach them they are not. He came just past midnight, when the wind had stilled and the fire burned low. No moon, just the creak of snow under boots. Coulter heard it first. He stood, rifle in hand, eyes on the door. I held my revolver tight, chest aching with every breath. The silence outside felt too heavy, like the land itself was holding its breath. Then came the knock, soft, 3 times. I raised my gun. Coulter shook his head. Too easy. Another knock, then a voice, low and familiar. Let me speak to her. Just her. I stepped forward before Coulter could stop me. I opened the door slowly, keeping the revolver hidden behind my skirt. Wallace stood alone, hat off, hair slicked back, his face calm like a preacher about to lie. "You married him," he said. "I did." He looked past me, into the cabin, his lip curled. "She is mine by blood." "No," I said. "She is mine by choice." He nodded, almost like he respected the answer. Then he stepped back, pulled something from his coat. It was a paper, a legal form, folded and stamped. "Court order, issued last spring in Missouri. You are still his widow. You still owe, and by law the child is family property until debts are resolved." Coulter stepped forward then, took the paper, read it once, then tore it clean down the middle. "This is not Missouri," he said. Wallace laughed. "You think you can make your own laws out here?" Coulter's voice dropped to something darker. "No, I just choose which ones matter." Wallace looked at me. "I will come back, and I will bring men, real ones. You cannot hide forever." I raised the revolver then, pointed it square at his chest. "I am not hiding," I said. "I am standing." For the first time I saw it in him. Not rage, not control, doubt. He took one step back, then another. "You will regret this," he said. Coulter's rifle raised beside me. "Not likely." Wallace turned and walked into the dark. No fight, no shot, but war had been declared. Inside I sat down and wept, not from fear, from relief, because for once I had spoken back to the devil, and he blinked first, and somewhere deep in my bones I knew. The reckoning was not over, but neither was I. The fire died low, but we did not sleep. Outside, the world was quiet in that eerie way that meant something was still coming. Inside, I sat with my back to the wall, Coulter beside me, his rifle across his lap, both of us too tired to speak but too wired to rest. And then Lucy's voice echoed from below, soft through the cracks in the floor. "Is it over, Mama?" I stood, opened the trap door, and climbed halfway down. She was there, curled beside June, her cheeks red from the cold but her eyes wide with worry. "Not yet," I whispered, "but we are winning." She nodded like she understood something deeper than most adults ever do. "Mama," she said, her voice barely more than breath, "if I came from something bad, does that mean I am bad too?" My heart cracked open. I knelt, pulled her into my arms, and said the truth. "You came from pain, but you were born of love. You are light, Lucy. Nothing that happened before you can change that." She buried her face in my shoulder, and I held her like I could hold back time. Above us, Coulter cleared his throat. "Let the girls come up. It is warm now and safe enough." They did, and we sat by the hearth again, all four of us, wrapped in quilts, waiting on a world that had not yet decided whether to give us peace or more battle. At dawn, Coulter finally spoke. "When I buried my wife, I promised her two things. 1, I would raise our daughter to be kind. 2, I would never let the world make me bitter." He looked at me, eyes full of that same promise. "I broke that second one, until you came." I reached for his hand, held it firm. "I do not know what tomorrow brings," I said, "but I know I am not running anymore." He nodded. "Neither am I." We heard nothing from Wallace that day. No riders, no messages, no letters carved into wood, just stillness. But stillness, I had learned, does not always mean peace. Sometimes it means planning. That evening, Lucy drew pictures at the table. One of me, one of her, one of Coulter, one of June, all holding hands. When I kissed her good night, she asked, "Can I call him Papa now?" My voice shook when I answered, "Yes, baby, you can." And that night, With her little arms around my neck and her soft breath on my cheek, I finally asked the question I had been afraid of for years. What if I deserved this too? Did she deserve better? The sun rose red the morning Wallace returned. Not the soft blush of morning, not the golden glow of peace. Red like blood in water, red like warning. I saw the dust before I saw the riders. 3 men on horses galloping hard up the ridge. Wallace in front, coat flapping like a dark flag, eyes fixed on the cabin he swore he would claim. Coulter saw it too. He saddled his horse without a word, rifle strapped across his back, pistol at his hip. He turned to me as I stood on the porch with the girls behind me watching. "I need you to stay here," he said. "No," I told him, "not this time." His eyes searched mine. "I will not be the woman who hides while you fight," I said. "I will not let that man look me in the eye and see fear again." He nodded once, then he kissed my forehead. We rode out to meet them together, out past the trees, past the grave I had dug and never filled, past the edge of what I thought I could survive. We met them halfway down the ridge. Wallace reined in his horse, smirking like the devil had whispered in his ear all night. "You ready to give me what's mine?" he said. Coulter spoke before I could. "You came here to take a child, but what you will take is this choice. Turn back now or leave in pieces." Wallace laughed. One of his men reached for his holster. Coulter fired first. The man fell off his horse before he could blink, shot clean through the shoulder, screaming, bleeding, not dead, but done. Wallace's second man turned his horse and rode off. Cowards run when no one follows. Wallace stayed. He looked at me. "Tell him, girl. Tell him what I am to you." "I already did," I said, "and he still married me." His face twisted, rage pouring out of him like oil from a busted lantern. "You were mine," he hissed. "You owe me." Coulter stepped forward. "She owes no man, least of all you." Wallace reached for his gun. I shot him, not in the chest, not in the head, in the leg, right where he had stepped toward Lucy all those years ago. He fell hard, screaming, cursing my name. I walked up to him, stood over the blood-stained snow and said the words I had waited years to say. "This is the last time you will ever hurt anyone." Then I handed Coulter the badge. "You are the law," I said. And justice was done. Wallace was taken to the nearest town, cuffed and bleeding by the same men who once turned blind eyes to his deeds. Coulter rode beside him, quiet and firm, never once looking away. He handed him over to the marshal with a simple line. "This man came for what was not his, and left with what he deserved." It made the papers 2 counties wide, and for the first time my name was not stained with shame, but spoken with strength. I stayed behind with the girls, watching the horizon until Coulter returned. When I saw his figure rising through the dust, upright, unharmed, I felt something I never had before in all my life. Safe. The kind of safe that lasts. Coulter dismounted and walked up to me without a word, just pulled me into his arms, his forehead against mine. "It is done," he whispered. And I knew he did not just mean Wallace. He meant the fear, the running, the quiet grief that had lived in our bones too long. We buried the gun in the earth behind the barn. I laid flowers over it, a symbol of the woman I no longer needed to be. The days that followed were slow and golden. The girls played by the creek, laughter echoing through the pines like music. Lucy smiled without shadows behind her eyes. June called me Mama by accident one afternoon. I wept at that. She did not see. Coulter built a bench under the cedar where his first wife rested. We sat there every Sunday, sometimes in silence, sometimes in memory, but always together. One night he said to me, "I never thought I would love again." I answered with a voice soft but certain, You did not love again, Coulter. You just loved different. He nodded. And deeper. Spring came early that year. The tulips Lucy and June had planted bloomed in wild color across the porch. Red, yellow, pink, like hope bursting from the ground. Coulter taught Lucy to ride. I taught June to sew. And every evening we sat at the table as one family, no longer made of pain but stitched in healing. I kept the silver ring on my finger and the scar on my heart, both reminders of where I had been. But now I had something more powerful than survival. I had peace. I stand on the porch now, years later, with gray in my hair and joy in my bones. Lucy is 17, strong like the wind and soft like the rain. She calls Coulter Papa without thought, as if he always was. June is nearly grown too, with hands that heal and eyes that still watch the world like she understands its secrets. This land, ours now in name and memory, holds more than a home. It holds a resurrection. I once believed my story had ended in Missouri, that the grave I dug for my husband would be my final chapter. But God, or fate, or justice, had more to write, and he used the hands of a quiet cowboy to do it. Coulter still splits wood every morning, whistling low. He still leaves small gifts by the door for no reason at all. A ribbon, a feather, a note written in blocky, careful letters. Sometimes I catch him watching me when I am hanging laundry or brushing Lucy's hair, watching like he cannot believe I am real. Sometimes I watch him back, just as stunned. He built me more than a cabin. He built me a life. And in return, I gave him the one thing no man had ever asked for. My truth. All of it. And he stayed. The townsfolk, once wary, now wave when we ride through. They speak my name without judgment. They bring pies and yarn and news. They ask Lucy how her studies go. They ask June if she will come sing in church. They ask me nothing about the past, and that silence is its own mercy. I walk now to the cedar tree, the one where his first wife rests. I lay down tulips, not out of duty, but love. Thank you, I whisper to the roots, for loving him first, and for letting him love again. The wind answers me in soft breath. Coulter joins me, takes my hand. We have done all right, he says. I lean into his side. We did more than survive. And it is true. We redeemed what was broken. We protected what was pure. We rebuilt what was stolen. Love, out here, does not come with lace or letters. It comes with blood and ash and firelight. It comes when you least expect it, wrapped in a borrowed coat on a cold porch, spoken through trembling hands and guarded hearts. But when it stays forever.